Thank you.
The mic is yours.
Thank you. It's good afternoon. Good afternoon. The people at the far end, is the mic loud enough? Can you hear me? Your hands up if you are hearing me. Thank you. So I don't have to be louder. But in the time I have been allocated, I believe we are going to deal with a very important topic. I know Mr. Ndegwa will call what he was talking about software, but mine is real software. In the sense that I will not be talking about money, which you have been talking about quite a lot, but I'm talking about the real reason why you give the money is so that you can develop the future Kenyan. Am I right? So we want to discuss how to develop the Kenyan. Several years ago, there was a conference at KIA. Now the name has changed. KIA has changed. There was a conference there, which was, those who are older will remember, it was called The Kenya We Want. Do you remember it? The trouble is, we forgot to talk about the Kenyans who can give us the Kenya we want. And so we have continued having troubles, not because you don't have Vision 2030, but you don't have the people who can take us to that vision. And part of the problem is because as universities and training institutions, we develop imbalanced people, bright people, well-educated people, but people who are soulless. You know the soul? They can do absolutely anything. And we know that because some of them are our leaders. Am I right? And you can see clearly some of the things, the way they are done in the country, are done by people who don't seem to have a spirit or a soul. I believe it is important for every university, as we try to finance university education or even TVET, it will be important the university takes time to help the student to grow in a balanced manner. And if we don't, we'll have people that are bright but are not useful. Now, for example, if somebody doesn't value himself, he is always having insecurity, personal insecurity. He believes he cannot perform. Even if that person gets an A, somehow he is always thinking that they don't have a good self-image. He is always thinking that you don't like him. He may have an A academically, but maybe he thinks he's too short. So every time you say Mr. Kamau, he thinks you are calling him like that because you think he is short. And there is something called compensatory behavior. Every time you are dealing with Mr. Kamau, sorry if you are called Mr. Kamau, but every time you deal with Mr. Kamau, it's always a fight. Why? Tell him, would you like to come? Am I your son? He is dealing with a problem of personal insecurity. And if you work with the juniors who are insecure as supervisors, you know how hard it is. You don't know how to share with them instructions, because whatever instruction you try to share with them, they think so-and-so you talk to her very respectably. Me, you don't care. And you don't know how to say it. You say, come. That's a problem. Please come. You're only saying please because you want to make me think you like me. Now, it doesn't matter what you do with him. But it's actually far much worse if it happens to be your supervisor. If your supervisor has insecurity, please accept my sympathy in advance. Because it doesn't matter what you do, they always think you are looking down on them. Have you dealt with bosses like that? It is not something you ever want even for your enemy. To have an insecure boss is suffering permanently. So we must start developing people, professionals, that have good self-image, and whatever they do their very best, and they do not wait for other people to describe whether it's good or not. Because for them, they know. You know, for example, sorry ladies, if I use you as an example, the important thing is God helps somebody to discover something called a mirror, isn't it? So before you walk out, always face the mirror. Now, once you see yourself in the mirror and you like yourself, don't wait for people to say, that's a bad dress. Say, thank you, that's your opinion. I looked at myself in the mirror, I was okay. That is your problem. Now, once you go out to face people, not waiting for them to define you, but being sure who you are, you will meet them in a way without insecurity. Would you agree with me? The trouble is that a lot of people wait for others to define them. And I think it's because of this problem of imbalanced lives, where we are being helped in one area and we are not being helped in other areas, and it can quite create a problem. You know, since all areas of your life are important, it will be important to understand then you cannot ignore one area and expect you are going to develop as a professional who will be useful to our country. Much of life is a question of maintaining balance rather than pushing one area alone. In athletic team, the team knows that they need a balance between offense and defense, and between quickness and strength. The reason why the big football teams are good is because they don't just aim at people who are scoring, the front line. They are careful about the backs. Am I right? If you just have one without the other, you can't win, could you? It's important to understand there must be. In our personal finances, we work to maintain a balance between income and expenses. And for help, that's a major issue. The students who may not understand how to live within their means. I have come to a conclusion, and I'm now retired. I spend quite a bit of time helping people like you, so I consult in performance management. And as I talk to people, one of the big issues that is eating into people and lowering their quality of life is inability to live within your means. It does not matter even if your salary is doubled, you are always having more expenses than the income. And such people, it's a basic problem, inability to live within your means. But once you can't live within your means, it will be very difficult not to become corrupt. Because if you are in a position where you have committed yourself more than the money you have, and somebody says, by the way, I just wanted to leave these 10,000 shillings. Why? No, I just thought of giving you. You don't ask why. You only say, God has answered prayer. Now, it's very important to understand that once you take the 10,000, the day of payment will come. There is nothing for free. Am I right? There will be a time. But it all began by the fact that you are not living within your means. If you are married to a woman who cannot live within her means, please accept my sympathy. Because there isn't any money you as a husband will ever get that will ever be adequate. Now, if you have a certain level of income and you know you can't buy a car, she insists others are buying. What's wrong with you? What kind of husband are you? You finally give in and start a car and buy a car. But from then onwards, there's no money for milk. Says, but children are having no milk. But you're the one who told me to buy a car. Now, you really have problems. But of course, it's actually worse when it's a man. A woman will be better. But when you have a husband who cannot live within the means, you are in trouble. And all these things start among the students. It doesn't come later. It starts early. No amount of you give, and I know that's why Mr. Regera is trying to help very much by making it technical, so that you get a card that will help you to be disciplined. But the critical thing is, you give him money, he cannot separate what is for school fees and what is for personal things. Not because he does. No, it's not that he's a fool. He understands the importance of paying school fees. But unfortunately, his commitments are more than the money that he is getting. We need to come to where we help the student to understand life is a balancing act. And he must be able to live within his means. We were the first group to get loans. We actually routed, 1974 was the first time for loans to begin. And my group routed because all throughout from the time the University of Nairobi started in 1958, 59, it was always bursary. Then at the end of 1973, they said from now onward students are going to get loans. And we actually routed and we were sent home from August 74. We stayed the longest time in the university. There was only one university those days. Had not been out. We came back in January. Basic problem, we don't want to get a loan. So I have a history with the loan. But I paid back mine. Now, it's important to understand clearly, when we got money, when I left A-level, I left Alliance just 73. And so I became a teacher for the beginning of 74. and I was earning, I think it was 550 shillings or something like that. But I was able to balance the money, and so as a teacher be able to buy things. Come to the university, and they gave us impossible money. My parents had never seen such money. We got 2,000 at a go. That money was impossible. You didn't know how to balance. You know, people bought radio cassette, bought whatever, and they drank a lot of it. Because it was money they had never imagined. Imagine if your salary is around 400, then somebody makes a mistake of giving you 2,000. You are mesmerized. And there was no training on how to handle 2,000. Now, you need to understand that is when problems begin. When you think the money is too much and you think you can use it. Within no time, you have not bought the books. And the money is gone. Because you could not imagine 2,000. My parents have never received such a salary since they were born. Now, what can you do with 2,000? Now, but unfortunately, it was for a whole year, the 2,000 for a whole year, and you have finished it within 2 months. Now, it's important to understand when you talk about balance, we are talking about the ability to balance things, and that's your life. In teaching, we try to keep the proper balance between content and creativity. You can become so creative, in the end, you can't cover the syllabus. Am I right? I know the deans also sometimes teach. Too much emphasis on content and the subject becomes boring. Too much emphasis on creativity and you have a lot of fun but communicate little. We all have to find the balance between diet, exercise, and rest. Each of them are important. Too much to one extreme or the other, and you begin to hamper healthy living. Ever heard of this story of the clever fool? He took all the 110 minutes to answer the first question. The exam was a 2-hour exam, but they made a mistake of bringing a question he was revising the previous night. Now, surely, when he saw it, he said, ini kutwanga. So he had so much information, and he didn't want the examiner to miss any part of it. He got caught up in it. He did not plan his time properly. He could not live within the time. Remember, the other one could not live within his means? This one could not live within his time. He couldn't balance out. So it's only when it is 10 minutes remaining, he discovered, I have not done the other questions. There are 5 questions, so 4 are remaining. He spent the 10 minutes trying to spend it to 4 questions. You can predict what happened. He got a straight A on, it was 20 marks per question. He got the whole 20, and the examiner could even have given more if it was available. But unfortunately, he got nothing for all the others. What was the overall result for the subject? Fail. That is life for you. When you push one area and forget the other, you will get an A in that area, but nothing in all the other areas. Overall result for your life? Fail. And that's what the students need to learn. Very, very important piece of information. Some of you are Muslims, some are Christians, but I like quoting a holy book. Luke chapter 2 verse 52 talks about balanced growth. And baby Jesus was said to have grown in balance. We are all supposed to do the same. The Bible tells us, and Jesus grew in wisdom and stature and favor with God and man. It was an overall growth. He didn't grow one area and forget the other. Have you noticed? He had balanced growth. And if you want to grow in balance, you must grow in the same way. Number 1, you must grow in wisdom. That means it is not voluntary to take your child to school. If you don't train your child at all academically, he will not grow intellectually, and he will be an old man who doesn't know enough to face life. It is important, and of course you say, but there were no schools before the Mzungu came. You don't require a school the way you know it. All you require is a teacher. And the teacher does not have to be called Mwalim. He can teach without the title. Are we together? In our traditional life, the uncles, the aunts, the grandmother, the grandfather were all professional teachers without a salary. And the child grew properly educated. By the time you're a certain age, the other boys will laugh at you. If you don't know which tree produces medicine and which one can poison the goat, by that time you must understand what is required for you to be somebody who can look after animals. Academic growth is critical. It's not voluntary. That's why we are sending our children to school. We must help them to grow academically. We also told Jesus grew in stature. That is physical. And we must help our students to understand when they come to the university, they must look after themselves. Then thirdly, we had time to grow in favor with God. To grow in favor with God means to grow spiritually. And so it means that anybody who grows academically and physically, but does not grow in terms of relating with God, they will not be balanced. And then finally, he grew in favor with man, social. In my book, A Leader's Source of Influence, which some of you have read, I have broken this into a longer list. I divide life into, in that book, A Leader's Source of Influence, which was my reply to a student conference that asked me to answer the question, how can I impact my generation? And as I was giving the talk, I explained, you only will impact your generation if you manage yourself. You cannot lead others if you cannot lead yourself. And so I try to tell them they must see their life divided into 3 areas. One is private life, the other one, personal life, the third one is public life. All of us have those 3 areas. And they must be sure that all the 3 areas are they are developing in all the 3 areas. And once you develop in all the 3 areas, it will not be difficult for you to start impacting and influencing the people around you. What do we mean by the private area? The private area is an area where only you alone knows the truth about yourself. Nobody else can actually help you. Your parents may be near you, but they don't know the truth about you. You have to have personal responsibility for the private area. One of them is the spiritual area, the one we have just talked about, favor with God. The parents can take you to Sunday school. They can take you to the Quranic school. But only you can decide whether to learn or not. You know, the work of a teacher is not to learn. The work of a teacher is to teach, isn't it? And however much you teach, only learning is voluntary. It's never compulsory. You must learn. No, it can't help. The person has to choose whether to learn. And the same thing, spiritual issues. All the parents can do to you is to try to expose you to godliness. But whether you become godly will be a personal choice. And you know, I used to laugh when I went to school I did my KPE, this was not KPE, 1967. And I had been in the village all the time until that time when I now went to high school. And we went with some other boys. And in the school, they would be irreligious, terrible people, drinking. Then when I visit them over the holidays, I hear the parents talk about how proud they are that God gave them such a wonderful son. You know, during the holidays, they are going to church, they are going wherever. Of course, I have to keep my mouth mum. But in fact, even when my children became teenagers, I used to remind myself, I remember, how foolish parents of teenagers are. Your son, by teenage life, is able to play a PR game. Am I right? And you can think, when you go and the teacher tells you, this guy is a drug addict, he says, wait a minute, you must have mistaken my son. My son doesn't have the ability to take such things. Because you don't understand private life. Private life, the parent cannot do anything for you. It's a choice you have to make. So the spiritual issues are issues important. And you need to understand, anybody who doesn't grow spiritually is an animal, because what makes the difference between a man and an animal is lack of the spirit. Are we together? That's why you can find our Shabab come and clear 147 students because they stopped having a spirit. It's something else replaced it. And that's not my area. I may not know what replaced it. But you don't have the normal, because it's godliness that causes you to be concerned about other people. So if you don't, it's gone. And we are growing students who, because we are emphasizing the spiritual issues less and less. We are getting a generation of very bright people without a spiritual perspective. And you have to find out as a country, if you don't want, because whatever structural development you are making for our country, it will all be brought to nothingness if we grow young people that will not have a spiritual angle to look at. So we are saying, on the private area, and I'm not just talking to students, I'm talking to finance managers and deans of students, I am talking to all of us. Play down on your spiritual issues, see what you will become. You know, sometimes when you are growing up, you saw somebody drop his wife, and you wondered, surely, what a fool. He dropped his wife for a house girl. What's wrong with his head? Now just stop being spiritual and see what will happen to you. You know, all of us are immoral minus opportunity. If you do not grow spiritually, you do things, even you yourself wonder, did I do it? It is important to understand it's godliness that helps you to have the brakes, not to slide into destruction. Second one, that under the private area, is intellectual growth. Intellectual growth is not something I said earlier. It's not something a teacher can do for you. You must be interested in growing intellectually. You know, people who are not interested and they are start reading for their parents, as soon as they get a degree, they start working, they don't read anymore. Because interest in intellectual issues is not something within them. They are not interested to grow academically. Somebody can get a master's, somebody can get a PhD, and after that, he is for all functional purposes illiterate. It's Kibaki who gave our president gave an example about Abeti Nakuru, who was prescribing medicine for a farmer in Nakuru, who went to town in Nakuru to buy the medicine to discover that medicine had been replaced several years ago. But when he was in the university, that the medicine that was effective for cows. Now, so Kibaki say, for all practical purposes, that person is actually illiterate. And it all happens, he passed his exams, but he was not intellectually interested. And you need to grow our students to where we are not emphasizing passing exams. We are growing them in the interest to learn. I was very surprised when for the first time the old president Kenyatta he's the one who gave me a degree before he died. Now, but I still remember attending the first graduation, and I couldn't understand when I heard, "I give you power to read." So I asked, "You mean they have been reading illegally?" And sometimes I don't think we have thought about that. The idea is, by the time somebody finishes university, you should have made him not just get head knowledge, but an interest in intellectual growth. So that by the time you grow, earlier you are learning, being taught how to learn. Now you can learn on your own. Are we together? And it's important to understand, if as the universities in Kenya, we are going to help our country, we must get students to become interested in learning on their own, and not learning to pass exams, but learning to grow. You know, in 1969, I made a commitment. I was in high school. I made a commitment that I'll be reading a book that has nothing to do with my exams continuously. And I have read a book. You can always ask me, which book are you currently reading? I have read a book from 1969 to date. I'm always reading a book that has nothing to do with my work, just to help me to intellectually grow. At that time, I did not know I would ever become a writer. It was not something with my interest. I wasn't reading in order to write, but have discovered what an impact it has had. And you are saying, if you are going to help our students, we must get them to where they get interested in acquiring knowledge for themselves. Intellectual growth. Jesus grew in wisdom. And it's important to understand, if you are going to grow properly, you not only must grow spiritually, you must also grow in terms of intellectually. The trouble with a number of students, they come sometime to the university and they are in either group. Some of them come to the university and say, "I came to learn." So they will not go to any religious meeting. It's a waste of time. What will happen? They will get an A in engineering, but because they never grew spiritually, their engineering will be the engineering that will make roads that are going to cause accidents. How do they cause accidents? he knows how to design a good road, he has made the resident engineer, then they agree with the contractor how to make less of the road so they can share the money. That guy has no problem academically. He has a problem spiritually. Are we together? So you need to understand that if he does not grow spiritually, no academic performance. So it's important that the students are told the reason why we don't have lectures 24 hours a day is because you must sleep. And you must sleep not less than 6 hours. So the student needs to be taught that sleep is not something of a luxury. God created us needing to sleep. So you can't fail to sleep. You must also teach the student that out of 24 hours, 6 has gone to sleep. You must have time for academics. And since the main thing in the university, give it 8 to 10 hours. Some with a teacher, some preparing our own. It must be important. But if you put 10 to 6, how many hours do we have? 16. Out of 24 hours, how many hours are remaining? How many hours? 8. It's a full day. It's a full working day. Am I right? And any student who is starting to put more than 10, 11 hours learning will reach what economists call the point of diminishing returns. You have heard of it? Where for every extra hour you put, you get less. So that's why you are supposed, if you're a clever student, stop reading. The 8 hours is for something else. And part of that time is to have time with God. And it's important that the students are taught. Anybody putting all his time in academics and has no time in spirituality is a person who will not grow in a balanced manner. But that's a person who is emphasizing academics. The other one, or spirituality. The other one is emphasizing spirituality without academic. And there are people like that. A Christian person who does that. I still remember when we did our Form 4. I did my Form 4 1971. When we did our Form 4, there was a story of a student who was so serious in the Christian Union. I won't tell you which school it is, in case I'm talking about your uncle. But he was so serious with his academic work that by the time we were doing exams, he had done very little revision. But when he went to the exam, he told God in prayer, God, you know I've been doing your job. Now do mine. So he would write his name. He tried to look at the question. He can do nothing. But he was not worried because he failed to revise because he was available for God. So God must also do the exam. Of course, in March, the results came. And he failed with the crawling colors. You know, people normally pass with flying ones. He failed with crawling colors. But it's important to understand that you cannot expect to pass. And if you actually passed after not studying, God would have to apologize to the students that have put a lot of time. Are we together? Because you're not be a fair God. And students need to be taught. No amount of prayer meeting will ever enter the things in the head. That's not the way God created it. You must go to the book yourself. The teacher can't do it for you. You must do it for yourself. And there's no, you don't, a lot of people say, but you know, I don't study much, but I study with quality. Please understand, quality must go with quantity. You cannot say, can you imagine if you are my brother, if your wife told you that she gives you quality food, balanced diet. But it's a kind that is so little, every day you are getting balanced diet, but equal to what your baby son is getting. Every day. By the end of the week, you complain, but you know I'm feeling hungry. Don't you understand? I'm giving you a balanced diet. They tell us in health circles that when you eat a balanced diet but too little, you suffer from a disease called marasmus. Am I communicating? So you suffer from marasmus after you eat quality without quantity. And it's important for the students to understand it is not enough that they are studying well the few hours. There's a minimum number of hours which if you go less, you will not be able to understand. And anyway, it will show the fact that you are trying to do your minimum tells us you haven't yet understood the importance of intellectual pursuit. And it's the kind of thing you are doing, after some time, you want to drop a force. Now, number 3 is the body. It's important to understand the body is very personal. Whether you wash or you don't, the student need to be taught. It is not something I can know immediately. So, but if you take too long and have a good sense of smell, I can say you did not wash. But in the short term, we can't tell. So washing your body, looking after your body is a private affair. It's you that decides whether to look after your body or not. If you stay long enough without looking after your body, we will take you to hospital. There will be a problem. But that's a long term, not a short term. You must be taught that Jesus grew physically. He grew in stature. And that means he had to look at the kind of things that can help him to grow. And the student must be taught the same thing. You know, there are students who are drinking their money and then they are on 001. I had a student say, I asked, what is 001? No breakfast, no lunch, only supper. That is 001. And because the money is all drunk, sometimes it's on 000. Now, it's very important to advise the student that if you don't look after your body, it will affect your spirituality, it will affect your mind. Am I right? All of them are together. So in my book, I say, a student must be taught the importance of rest. That's why I said you must tell them sleeping is not voluntary. They must be taught the importance of exercise. Sitting looking at a book for 12 hours and you are in one position, within no time, you are going to be physically ill. I still remember 1988 having a road accident. My car was right off. And I was hurt on the leg. Then they put a plaster on me. But because the rest of my body was okay, as soon as I went for the removal of the plaster, I expected to walk. So I said, Daktari, usimalize. And I wanted to stand to walk. He laughed. He's a very jokerous doctor. An orthopedic surgeon. He laughed. He said, you try. I tried, I fell. I said, I knew. You need clutches. Still. I said, but I'm no longer having a plaster. He said, there's something called atrophy. Atrophy, he told me, is if you put your hand in one position without exercise for 3 weeks, you require a doctor to treat it. It's not a disease brought by something else, lack of use. It's called atrophy. So you don't use something long enough, you require now a medical help in order for it to start working. And you need to understand your body is the same. Sit there looking at books for a continuous level of time and talking to you will not be enough. You require a physiotherapist. Are we together? So it's important for the student to be taught that exercise is not something to be done by people who are running long distance to make money. Even if you are normally the last person in the line, you are still getting physical help. Are we together? So it's not a competition. We don't run for competition. We run in order to do exercise. But of course, it's not the only one. I mean, I'm sure it's a big subject which we can deal with. But the student must be taught if he does not rest, there will be a problem with his body. If he does not exercise, there will be a problem with his body. If he is eating maize continuously, he will have a lot of strength, but soon enough all diseases will visit him. Because he did not eat a balanced diet. The student must be taught. I know they learned in primary school, but you know that time someone was looking after them. In the university, many of them are on their own. It will be important they are taught. All that is what I call private life. And it's not just the students, all of us, the private life is prime. If you don't look after your private life, your public life will have problems. No wonder a lot of our leaders, sometimes you can't say, yet he could do that. Yes, because he forgot his private life. The second part of your life is called the personal life. Personal life is not private. It's an area where you allow a few people close to you, but you allow them in. And normally, the people you allow into your personal life are unlikely to require your toes to count. Your fingers are too many for the fight there. Somebody can be your brother, your mother's son, but you don't allow him there. Because it's a voluntary. It's you who determines who enters into your personal space. Somebody can be your wife, but somewhere along the way, she went out. She's in the public area. She's no longer, okay, she has a legal certificate saying she's your wife. That's not an issue. But she is not accurate, because you see, she can't force herself. She is legally a wife, but she is not a personal in the personal area. You know, I still remember one of the contractors when I was working, I worked for Shell for 30 years. And so I got to know many contractors. I remember a contractor coming to my office on business issues. Then he said, He was not looking very happy. I asked him, what's the issue? He says, I've just come from Rafa. Oh, they told you something bad? Yes, I have cancer. Then he was going to say, but don't tell my wife, since I knew the family. So I asked myself, he feels it's okay to tell me, and it's not okay for the wife? What does that tell you about the wife? She is not in the personal? Because when you have not processed matters, those kind of issues that are not yet processed cannot be shared with the people who are not in your personal self. And a lot of students do not understand the personal area. You are in university, but there is nobody in your personal area. So when you fail your exams, or you hear the devil saying, commit suicide. It's too embarrassing to fail. Now, if only you had somebody in the personal area, he would tell you, please remember, Karaoke failed. Otieno failed. Jared failed. Now you also failed. What's special about you? You wake up, am I right? Yes. But you require people, because if people in the public area tell you, you think they're laughing at you. But people in your personal area, you trust them. Am I right? So you need to have, and I'm not just talking about students. I'm talking about these seated here. There are people who allow no one in their personal area. If you are that type, when you commit suicide one of these days, don't say I never warned you. It is not something you do voluntarily. You must allow certain people in your personal area. Many of them will be category of relatives. Sometimes it is friends who are not your relatives. But the students must be taught the personal area is critical. One of the things I say in my book, the personal area is where you do pilot studies. So many of you are researchers. So you understand, you are trying to test the data in a small group. Isn't that called pilot? Now, that's what you are doing. With your personal life, you can come with a wonderful idea. I'm climbing Mount Kenya. Wonderful. But just before you climb, please reveal it to your personal group. And they'll remind you, you normally have bronchitis. Is it going to work when you are above a certain 1,000 feet above the sea level? They'll make you be aware. Now, of course, you can call it discouragement, but they are giving you what is called a reality check. Oh, I want to drive a Mercedes. Good news. Exactly how much money have you saved so far? How much do you think, if you are given a loan of 4 million, how much are you going to pay per month? Number two, a Mercedes carries 5 people. Your current Volkswagen also carries 5 people. Exactly what do you hope to gain after you have mortgaged yourself? Now, it is giving you a reality check. So you need to understand you require people in the personal area. And the students must be taught the importance of having people. That's why, for example, people who end up in the Christian Union gain a lot. Because as you relate in fellowship, you soon get people into your personal area. Not everyone in the Christian Union joins your personal area. But because you are open, you are not with your relatives, you are in a new place. When you get a social group, you are able to pick some of them that's going to share. But you have people that are lonely, that do not have somebody relating with, you have a problem with them. The third area is called the public life. Public life is where we do what you have gained in the private area and tested in the personal area. We finally face the public life. If it's money, you actually finally go to the bank. The bank is not personal to you. They are interested in getting their loan. So the bank will not tell you, by the way, I'm giving you this loan. But you see, if I were you, I would buy a cow. No, the bank wants to give you the money because they only make money if they loan. Are we together? I am not talking about hell. I'm talking about the bank. It is important to understand that you need a personal place because the public life, people deal with you legally. They deal with you as per the norms of the community. They don't have a personal. They don't take personal responsibility about you. Now that's the area where you do your academic work. If you're a student, your lecturers could become personal. But when you go to the classroom, do not expect, teacher, how could you give me only 20 marks? What's wrong with you? Don't you have sympathy? Now you shouldn't expect sympathy from a lecturer. Am I communicating? You expect proper marks. So, but a lot of students go into it assuming that the public life is also a personal life. This can be pretty rough in the public life. And the students need to be prepared for the public life. That is in the place of your professional, your church, your community work. All that is that I need to be finishing. I've already taken 40 minutes. I should be finishing. Let me just finish by talking about prerequisites to balanced living. How do you ensure, and I know you are already thinking about it, all the 7 or so areas I've described, are you allocating time? And are you allocating adequate time to each area? I think it's important to deal with it. Number 1, avoid the dictatorship of the agent. In my book, I argue, and I'm going to refer to it, it is important to understand the agent doesn't have to be done, but it insists on being done. So you must be able to tell this thing is urgent, but it's not dictating. I can make a choice. And for example, that's what some of the problem with the students. His eyes falls on a certain girl. I'm not saying she. I don't know that girls are like that. I've never been one. But boys just see a girl. And because they have seen a girl, they realize if they don't talk to her quickly, karaoke is going to talk before they talk. It doesn't matter there is an exam tomorrow, there's no exam tomorrow, the agent, it becomes agent. What they don't know is that girl has a right to accept him or not. Second, number 1. Number 2, where that girl was created, God is still in the business of creating new ones. So even if that one says no, there is still hope. Are we together? So you need to understand whatever it is that is causing urgency. Or you can feel like, I must finish second year, but I've run out of money. So you commit suicide. It's important to understand if you are going to live a balanced life, you must bring things to size. You know, I was born near a mountain, but let me tell you something interesting. A tree near you is normally higher than the mountain far. Am I right? It's called perspective drawing. Now, I still remember a teacher in Form 2 trying to teach me how to draw. But I thought in my head, a mountain must always be bigger. So I drew the mountain bigger than the tree. He said, you don't understand. You are not putting things in perspective. The tree is looking bigger, but not actually, it's looking bigger because it's nearer. The mountain, I agree, is bigger, but in the picture, it must look smaller because it's far away. That is the problem of this idea of living in balance. The agent becomes so big, you forget. For example, you forget something, because you are not looking things in perspective, you are lacking money now. And you feel like life is going to end. Now, if you saw things in perspective, you can realize you can leave the campus for 1 year, come back, and you still finish, isn't it? I found it very interesting. The other day I was speaking in one of the campuses. I was about to tell you which one. And then one of the lecturers had come to the Sunday service. So when we met outside, he said, he was telling the students, John was with me in campus. And he was introducing me, and I looked at him. You know, in our days, the university was so small. All university students, all over Makerere, Uganda, Tanzania, could not have been more than 3,000 at the beginning of the 70s. So we knew each other. Even if you don't know the name, at least you have seen the face. I looked at him and was claiming to be in the Christian Union, and I was the chairman of the University Christian Union in 1975. I couldn't remember, but I didn't want to embarrass him. So when we were alone, I asked him, sir, when did you graduate? He told me, yeah, I graduated in 1983. I told him, I agree with you. We were together on different parts of the pulpit. Because I had left the university in the 70s, but because I have been speaking in campus continuously, all he can remember, he associates me with speaking in the campus and thinks we are exactly the same age. Now, what I'm trying to get you to see is that even if I left campus 5 years or more ahead of him, we are still age mates. As far as children can see, we are both old. We have gray hair, we are both dead, we are old. But there was a time, 1 year was big. When I was first year, that year looked so big. We are frightened if they are friends. They are talking to you and your legs are having fellowship. Now, these days, I realize we are only 2 years apart. And nobody can tell the 2 years. They have disappeared. Now, can you see, when you see the longevity of your life, 1 year repeating cannot kill you. Are we together? You can't even tell. So it's important to start seeing things in perspective. But when you don't understand the dictatorship of the agent, you are likely to end up in your books and forget the Christian Union. Or in the Christian Union and forget your books. You need to see things. Next, you need disciplined living. You can't allow yourself to do whatever you feel like. Nobody ever achieved anything who does whatever pleased his heart. Whatever it is you do in life, all great men had to stop doing certain things which they like to do, but who are not as productive as whatever else you are doing. It's a normal thing. Sometimes you want to be the boys, but you know you have to be the books. So you have to say no to something you enjoy. That's what we call discipline. You decide I'll be waking up at 5 and sleep a sweet test at 5. To actually come out, you must require to ask somebody to pour water on you, but you must wake up. That is what we call discipline. Thirdly, decision made on how well the item supports fulfillment of your call. In other words, and I'll be coming back to that, you must have a clarity of what your calling in life is. Then all decisions we make will be made on the basis of, can this help my calling or not? Next, you must have ability to say no and or to say yes. Of course, there are some people who are expert in saying no. Everything no, even before they understand no. Now, you will not go very far. Because the person talking to you may be creating an opportunity you cannot get in future. But you must be willing to listen, and where it's a yes, because it supports your mission, you say yes. Where it is no, whatever the amount of persuasion, you must be able to say no. Many of us say yes to everyone, and they end up messing up our future. It's important to say no. I said a little earlier about avoiding addiction. I want to quote some Bible verse. 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 20 says, I have the right to do anything, you say, but not everything is beneficial. I have the right to do anything, but not everything is constructive. No one should seek their own good, but the good of others. Now, what you are saying is, if you are going to live a disciplined life, do not do everything you have a right to do. Do everything that is right to do. You see the difference? Don't do everything you have a right to do. Do the thing that is right to do. Can you see the difference? Yeah, but I'm allowed. Which law stops me? No. The young man needs to understand. We are willing adults. That girl is willing. I'm also willing. We sleep together, and according to you, as long as you're over 20, you are old enough, you have a right to do it. But it's not the right thing to do. So you must come, if you are going to live a balanced life, you must avoid doing everything you have a right to do. Do the thing that is right. If something must be done, yet not reasoned on the basis I've talked about, then it's an addiction. Not addiction, but addiction. Addiction is what you do, even if you don't want. And many of us seated here have addictions. Maybe it's a TV program. If Manu is playing, I can't do anything. It may be exam tomorrow, but Manu is playing. My friend, please understand you're an addict. Exactly like a drug addict. Because the thing that makes you addicted, it means you are out of control. You can't achieve much. You cannot talk of balance with addicted people. They require rehabilitation. And if you are here and you are that type, please ask for rehabilitation. It is important to understand. There are people who are addicted to women. They don't even bother to say, how does she look like? What would happen? Now, that's for tomorrow. Now, come. Now, you need to understand clearly. If you are that type, you end up with HIV/AIDS. Am I right? It is important to understand it is you that determines. Do I do this or don't I do this? The student must be taught the danger of addiction. Reason everything. Don't do something. Addiction is equal to loss of control, and little of your mission will finally be fulfilled. So, do you have priority setting? Do you decide on the basis of priority? Maximizing your potential in all areas. Your profession, your social life, your academic life. Are you maximizing? Number 2, do you have a commitment to setting priorities and adhering to them? There are people who make New Year resolutions because they intend to break them. Are you getting the point? December, they're even writing them. I still remember when I was a teacher in high school in Nyandarua. And I still remember one of the teachers coming to me saying, I want to stop smoking. I said, but where do I come in? I want to sign a contract between you and me that I will never smoke again. I said, that will not stop you smoking. Say it will too. I said, if it okay, then say, I so and so agree with the John Nganga, I will never smoke again. And so we were teachers, we will meet in the staff room, and I will see the other teachers starting to laugh. I wonder, am I badly dressed? Exactly what's the problem? By the time I discovered that you'd be smoking when he hears John Ng'ang'a is coming, he stopped, like a student. Because he thought he's succeeding as long as John Ng'ang'a has not yet seen. So when I heard that, I said, Bwana, just be relaxed. If you want to get cancer, please go ahead and smoke. The choice is yours. It's important to understand clearly. You must set priorities if you intend to keep them. If you have no intention of keeping them, they are not worth taking. And then remember, time management will be important. Why? The thing I'm saying, and I'm finishing with this, is that you must have a life's purpose. The student must be taught to have a life's purpose. I really get offended as I watch on TV and you ask children, what do you want to become? Doctor, engineer. Engineering is not a purpose. It's a career. You don't live for a career. Am I communicating? We must teach students and parents are actually worse. We must teach them that God does not create you for a career. He creates you for a purpose. You use the career to fulfill the purpose. For example, by the time you are 15, you discover your life's purpose is to alleviate suffering. Somehow, every time you hear somebody suffering, you get involved. There's something in you that causes you. So you are created to alleviate suffering. You can alleviate suffering by learning public health. Or it can be economics. Or it can be another area. A career is not the issue. It's why are you created? What makes you tick? And a lot of us, unfortunately, as a country, we don't talk about that. We talk about careers. So a lot of people have gone to medicine and they have no interest in alleviating suffering. They feel like doing medicine is a punishment. Because they don't have the touch. They don't have a calling. That's not their life. But because they got an A, in fact, every time I hear somebody got an A, I say, brother, is him in advance. Because he's unlikely to do what God created him for. If, for example, he wants to do sociology, say, no. All the anchors are on his case. You cannot waste an A on sociology. And so if the parents are convinced, they get everybody. So that boy finally goes to do medicine. But he has no heart. He goes to the, I was about to call it slaughtering table. He goes to the theater, and all of a sudden the blood is messing up. And I've known many students who have finally had to quit medicine because they can't stand the blood. It should be, you need to be able to understand, you need to discover your life's purpose. And in my book, I try to help the student. In that book, and then in another one I've written called The Christian Professional, I have a chapter simply to help the students to identify what God's calling in their life is. The minute you discover your calling, your life will succeed. 3 things I say in my book. Number 1, when you are doing what you are called to do, you are likely to enjoy it. Am I right? It may be difficult. The other day, I was talking to someone, and they told me they work in Afghanistan, a Kenyan. I said, what? Because that's about 5 years ago when the bullets were flying every direction. People were dying daily. I said, you volunteered? Was it by force? He says, no. I feel called to work in Afghanistan. I couldn't believe it, that anybody would choose. But that's what he enjoys. He believes God will protect him. And he is doing a lot of work there. Now, it's important to understand when you do something you have a calling for. However dangerous, however difficult, however little it pays, you enjoy it. Number 2, when you do something within your calling, you tend to be good at it. For 2 reasons. Something you are failing all the time, you are likely to be going towards it. You get a gifting in the area of your calling. So when you do what you are called to do, you tend to be very good at it. And because you are good at it, you are likely to reach the career top in that area. Because you are not doing it as a job, you are doing it as a calling. Are we together? So when you do, it's important for the students to be helped. If they are going to have that balance, it's because they are doing something to fulfill their calling. So you enjoy it, you tend to do well in it, but thirdly and importantly, you will do it for free. It's not the kind of thing you say, help is paying me so little, I'll not do it. Whether they are paid or not, they must do it. And it's important to do a job which you could do free, but you are being paid. And so the salary sounds like upon us. So it's important to ask yourself, are you within your life's calling or not? self-management. Please, once it's clear what your calling is, please have clear strategies in order to fulfill your calling. Number 2, set goals for each strategy. Number 3, set priorities. Remember, what is urgent, what is important, what is not urgent, what is not important is a classification of everything that ever comes. So whatever it is you are struggling with in order to live a balanced life, ask, is it urgent? Number 2, is it important? After that, you end up with some things that are important, some things that are not important. Some things that are urgent, others are not urgent. The only thing you should do it on this line. You do what is important and urgent first. Then you do what is important. Then you come to what is urgent and important. And finally, what is simply urgent but not important. It's important to be able to sort out your issues on the basis of, don't do the urgent. The critical thing is not his urgency, but his importance. Then obviously among the important thing, find out what is both important and urgent in order for you to live a balanced life. How can you organize your time? Take a census of how you are using your time. Tell the student to take a census of how he uses his time. Sometimes you think, oh, I'm reading a lot. But if you keep a diary, one day only, not every day, one diary, 2 things, let your life run normally, and you put a diary, by the end of 24 hours, you will be able to say how much time you used. You will be surprised how much time you used in gossiping. But you are not conscious because you enjoy gossiping. You are not conscious how long it took. Do a census on your time. Number 2, prioritize activities on the basis of how they help you fulfill your purpose in all the 7 areas I talked about. Then, activities, once you do it by picking out activities I want to do, activities that are proactive, and activities that are reactive. It's important to know the one that helps you to fulfill your purpose is much more important than the others. Thirdly, once you have agreed on that, use a diary. I learned a long time ago, your brain is not created to keep data that can be kept in a book. Let your brain be free to think. Put memory things into a diary. It's not very clever to download everything here. So when somebody tells you, are you coming next week? I say, don't. Give me time to check my diary. Don't let the things be diarized, the issue. Then find out that your diary is the one that will tell you, sorry, you can't do this, you can't do this. Then in the process, learn to delegate. Do not think you are indispensable. There are people who may not look good, but over time they can be good. Then block off time when you cannot be disturbed. A lot of us are busy with the people throughout. There is time you require quietness. Your family, everyone needs to know this is called thinking time. And nobody disturbs your thinking time. So it's important to create blocks of time when you cannot be disturbed. Some people call it meditation, but please don't meditate on nothingness. Because if you open your brain to nothingness, the demons will enter. So it's important to understand meditation is not what you hear people saying, God will say, keep quiet. You keep quiet, something else will come. It's important to meditate on something. Are we together? This book, the Joshua was told, this book of the law, you meditate on it day and night. So this new thing of just keeping, no, that's not proper. Find something to meditate on. That quietness is important. Block time. Then, you must have relaxed time when you allow people to disturb you. If you're the type of person who's so disciplined, your children will think you're a stranger. Am I right? You must have time when your children can jump on you. You can be doing something, but you don't know it might be disturbed. Because it allows the other people to know you value them. You don't treat them like a business. And then prepare for the activities. Some of the reasons why you use so much time is because you start doing something without preparation time. If you're prepared, for example, you're going for a meeting, you have not thought through, and all of you are similar, you will take a long time to make decisions. It will be important that you do that. Okay. Thank you very much. It's taken longer than I intended, but I hope it helps you to see the importance of balanced living.
Ng'ang'a